7 Secrets to Improve Home Brew. Introduction. My story was very much like most people who get into home brewing. My first batches of beer tasted horrible. Most people will quit after 1 or 2 attempts at trying to make a good beer. I almost did, but thankfully I stuck with it and went to work researching how to improve home brew. And eventually, after a ton of trial and error, I did learn the tricks of the trade and eventually figured out how to make a good tasting beer. 7 Secrets of Good Beer. Secrets? Really? No, not really, but I guess if you don't know about them they are secrets to you, right? It was just fun to use that word. It makes you think there are some conspiracies out there keeping you making bad beer unless you are in the know, and we all love a good conspiracy story. Unfortunately, this is not one of them. You just need to learn how to do this beer making thing the right way. And what these 7 methods really are, things you would learn over time as you brewed. So in the end, what this post is going to do for you is save you a ton of time and frustration by making sure you have all of this information up front. You will find all 7 of these are simple tweaks and adjustments, as well as being inexpensive and something you can implement right away on your next batch. So let's get you started. Secret number 1. Sanitation. Beer is a finicky little creature. It is highly susceptible to bacteria. Any little piece of it can ruin your beer and give it some nasty off flavors. You need to become obsessed with sanitation. Now, this is not a hard thing to accomplish. It just takes you doing a few things right on a regular basis. First off, make sure you clean all of your equipment very well. Elbow grease with unscented hand soap will do the trick in most cases. Do not use an abrasive brush or sponge on plastic items such as your fermenter or mash plastic paddle, as it can scratch the plastic, creating areas that bacteria can hide in. If you find that elbow grease and dish soap are not working, you can soak your items in PBW, or even unscented OxiClean does the trick. Secondly, you need to sanitize everything that is not going into the boil. So any equipment that will not be sanitized by the boil stage of your brewing needs to be sanitized with a food-grade sanitizer. Star San is by far the best sanitizer for home brewing. It goes a long way. I recommend getting a spray bottle and filling it with water and Star San, following dilution instructions on bottle, and spraying all of your equipment on brew day. You can also soak your bottles and fermenters in it. Become obsessed with sanitizing and it will go a long way to ensuring you do not end up with any off flavors. Secret number 2. Use a good recipe or beer kit. So not all recipes are not created equal. Grains work better with some grains than they do with others, when it comes to providing the flavor, mouthfeel, head retention, color, etc. of a beer. Also, the ratio of one kind of grain to the other is important. As you get good at making beer and get more experience, you will learn how to improve home brew recipes and even create your own. But in the meantime, you will want to use recipes that are tried and true winners. Secret number 3. Use new good yeast. I can't tell you how many times I have gone into a home brew supply store and looked at the yeast they were selling and noticed it had expired. Way too many times. Yeast makes a huge difference in the taste of your beer. Different yeasts produce different flavors. Expired or out-of-date yeast can mean that when you pitch it into your fermenter that not all of it will come alive or wake up, meaning not all of the sugars will be eaten, resulting in your beer having a lower ABV and also a sweeter taste to it. And if you are using beer kits, make sure they are supplying you with good yeast. You should throw out the yeast that typically comes with the malt extract kits, as it is garbage. Instead, pick up one of the following listed below. I am a dry yeast guy. It is just so much easier and typically less expensive, and they have some top-notch dry yeasts on the market these days. I recommend the following: Safal US-05 for any American-style brew, Safal US-04 for European ales, Safal K97 for a Kolsch. I also love Nottingham Ale yeast for European ales. Secret number 4. Watch the temperature when. Yeast is also a finicky little creature. It likes its beer temperature to be just right. If you are putting the yeast into the fermenter and the wort is too hot, it can kill the yeast. And if you are pitching the yeast and the wort is too cold, it can put the yeast to sleep. Putting the yeast to sleep is better than killing it, as it will wake up as the wort warms to the temperature of the room the fermenter is in. Most yeasts have a fairly forgiving temperature range. A broken bar, make sure you read the package the yeast comes in, as it will list the range. A broken bar safe zone. The best is between 60 to 70 degrees Fahrenheit. Secret number 5. Watch the temperature you ferment at. This is a biggie. If the space you are fermenting in gets too warm, it is going to produce some nasty off flavors in your home brew. I usually ferment in a room on the main level of my home, and keep that room around 68-65 degrees Fahrenheit. However, in the summer it gets much hotter than that, so I have to move my beer to the basement where it is cooler. I learned this lesson the hard way and lost a night because I fermented at too high of a temperature and the beer tasted terrible. Again, look at the packet of yeast for direction on what temperature to ferment at. I prefer to shoot for the lower end of the range they provide. I have found I get better results with my beers by doing that. Keep in mind that as beer ferments it actually creates heat, so the temperature inside the wort will be anywhere from 3-6 degrees Fahrenheit warmer than the space you are fermenting in. Secret number 6, keep oxygen out of your beer. The only time you want to let oxygen get into your beer is when you pitch the yeast. That is it. Any other time and you are asking for trouble. The biggest result of letting oxygen into your beer is an off flavor or bad tasting beer. A couple of things you can do to reduce the chance of letting oxygen into your beer are: keep the lid on the fermenter sealed. If you are using an airlock, make sure it stays filled with liquid. When transferring your beer from fermenter to bottles or kegs, make sure you are using a liquid line, and that it is sitting on the bottom of the new container you are transferring to so that you do not get any splashing. Don't be secondary. I never transfer my beer to a secondary fermenter. Most people who do this do so to help clear their beer. I find there is too great of a risk of getting oxygen into your beer during the transfer, so I don't do it. Secret number 7. Let your beer get old. And the last of the 7 secrets on how to improve home brew is to let your beer get old before you drink it. This is called conditioning. This is why I am never in a rush to check to see if my beer has finished fermenting. I let it sit in the fermenter for typically 2 weeks, and after I bottle or keg it, I recommend letting it sit for at least 4 weeks before drinking it. If you do this, your beer will simply taste better. You can even take a malt extract kit, and if you let it condition, it is going to taste pretty good. The only time you don't want to do this is if you are brewing a really hoppy beer. Hoppy beers need to be consumed fresh as the hop aroma and taste dissipates, but any other beer definitely benefits from letting it age. I know waiting to drink your brew is a hard thing to do, but it will be worth it. Final thoughts. There you go, my friend. If you follow those 7 tips on how to improve home brew, you are going to make good beer. Happy brewing.